Hi, welcome to Culture Shop. Well, what a week I've had. I've had a real opportunity over the last week to test out some ideas, a theory that I've had for a while, and see how it works in the real world. See, I've had this theory for a while that if we've chosen our organizational values well, and if we've chosen things that really describe us fully and that are meaningful for us, then they're going to help us overcome a lot of problems, a lot of challenges inside the organization in terms of they'll help us make decisions, they'll help us break deadlocks, they'll help us find people who are like us, they'll help us hold each other accountable, all of that kind of stuff. And that's what they should be there. And hopefully the ones that you've chosen are a very human set of values that speak about individuals and growth and all of that kind of stuff. Because ultimately, I'm convinced that's the kind of stuff that will set you up for success. But, and here's an interesting thing, I've also long had the view that values are a little bit like the way a DJ manipulates a mixing desk when they're playing music and they turn the treble up on some tracks and the bass down and vice versa. They change the volume, they change the distribution of sound and so on. Because I don't think you're ever likely to find a set of values, if they're chosen authentically, that are going to be universally applicable. At times, some of your values are going to come across more loudly than others. At times, some of your values are going to be more applicable than others. They're going to directly speak to a particular dilemma you're trying to resolve, whereas others might seem to be slightly more irrelevant. And to simply assume that we must always be mindful of all of the values all the time is almost a violation of the whole purpose. The purpose is that when we're stuck and when we don't know what to do, we go back to them and say, what are they telling us? What are they instructing us to do? What have we agreed here? And so that will be different for organizations that are in a sort of a growth spurt, in an easy economy where they're doing well and everything's fine. You can focus really well on growth and individuals and individual development plans and all of that kind of wonderful stuff. But when you find yourself on a war footing, when the organization is under siege, when your market's suddenly coming under attack, or your organization specifically is facing a crisis of some sort, then things, I think, need to change. And that's when the mixing desk starts to become quite valuable, because that doesn't mean that we no longer care about the growth of individuals or the sort of individual professional, individual personal advancement or anything like that. That doesn't mean that we don't care about those sorts of things. We just don't focus on them quite as much as we would if things were cushy. It's really as simple as that. You know, when you look back to think about London during World War II, for example, every night there were bombers overhead dropping bombs. There were some people who realized the job was, right now, no matter the fact that the mail needs to be delivered and the milk needs to be delivered and we need to run the trains and we need to do all of that kind of stuff, right now the crisis dictates that we focus on shooting bombers down and putting out fires. And as long as we do those things, we'll have a crack at getting through this, and we can worry about whether or not the milk is being delivered properly and the mail is being delivered properly at another time. If we focus on those things now, which seem to be the logical things and the things that our values, we think, guide us to do, then we take our eye off the crisis, and it may well be that we are we end up being the nicest, most generous, most progressive organization in the entire world that ceases to exist 6 months later. So it's kind of hard to know what to do. The values are there to help us. That's their purpose. That's why we must choose them so carefully. So that when we have these various phases of our business going well, everything's good, or in a state of crisis and everything's difficult, our values, they don't change, but they start to tell us what to do in slightly different ways. And I've had the opportunity to see that this week, and it's very, very elegant to understand when you understand it, and when you see it in action, just how powerful that concept actually is. I hope it works for you as well. I think you should have a look at it and look at your own values and seeing whether you could actually see different scenarios in which some of those values would be louder than others. I think that might be one of the ways in which you could really, really bring your values to life in the future. Little thought for this week. Have a great week.